2. 1, 2, 3.
Are you ready, America? It's time for another edition of Game On. With your host, Stevie Ray Braun, and Brad Bad News Bollinger. Sit back, relax, and enjoy. Game On. Talking about your favorite sports and different parts of life. Might even get a little take on Lane Kiffin's wife. They tell you what they think, you're not afraid to take a stance. They'll give you the number of pleats in Charlie Weiss's pants. They're the game on guys, see sports through their eyes. Political correctness just up and dies when they give you their views on any sport you want to hear. They're the game on guys, eating fries, drinking beer.
Welcome into Game On. I am Steve Braun. That is Brad Bollinger on the other end of the line. Brad, how are you, sir?
I am doing good. It's good to be back. What's it been, like 2 or 3 weeks? What's happened since the last episode?
I know I slept.
Has anything crazy happened in the world in the last,
I don't think so.
However many years we've taken a break?
No, nothing.
Okay, good.
Nothing.
Cool.
Has. Nothing.
So
has.
my life isn't in shambles or anything?
No, I don't believe so.
All right. Things are looking good, Pass Brad. Way to go.
Things are looking good for sure. We are back. We both missed doing this, so here we are. I don't know if anybody's actually going to listen to this or watch this or pay attention to this, but hey, I think if anything, it's more just therapy for us.
It is.
If we're
and to
being
be honest, like, I just need a hobby, I think. I think I'm getting to that point, after those 1.5 years of isolation. It's like I really did some soul searching, and it's like, oh, well, I need to do stuff other than work and eat and drink and so it's like, should I do like puzzles or something productive for my brain? No. Let's do the podcast again and just say absolute BS all the time. So that's the route I took.
Definitely can't do crosswords. So we are out on that. So
hey, Wordle,
That's true.
Did you get into Wordle?
I don't think I did.
I did for like a couple months, and it was fun, but like everything else in my life, I can't commit, so I don't do it anymore.
There you go. So the plan is to record these on Tuesdays, have them up and out on podcast land by Wednesday morning is the hope, sometime Wednesday. We have a TikTok, Facebook, Twitter. You can email us, all of that. Twitter at Game On Guys, Facebook Game On Show, TikTok Game On Pod. You can email us by typing in email gameon@gmail.com. So I think that's how this is going to go. Tuesday nights we record, Wednesday it's out. You don't hear from us until the next Wednesday, basically, when we record it on the Tuesday night before. All right, so that's the plan. Hopefully we will stick to it as best we can, and let's get into it. NFL season got underway this weekend. Some interesting games. Started last Thursday, wrapped up last night with a strange ending, to say the least. College football, we're about 3 weeks in now, 2 weeks officially for most teams. All of that taking place. And I'll start with the NCAA. And looking at just the grand scheme, in my opinion, Brad, there is not a team that has jumped out as the for sure national champion. I mean, there's not been a team that you're like, yep, that's a great team. Ohio State, Notre Dame earlier, what was that, week 1 officially, didn't impress me. They struggled against a Notre Dame team that then turns around and loses this past week. You go to Bama in Texas. Nothing about that game made me go, yep, that's a Nick Saban Bama team. And Texas losing Quinn Ewers doesn't look like a team that's going to be able to make a deep run with Hudson Card. You go to the local teams, OU, offensively, I don't think it's been anywhere close to what we thought. OSU's looked good, but again, not at a excellent level by any means. It hasn't jumped out to me of here's the team that you expect to see in the college football playoff.
Yeah, it's been an interesting few weeks to start off the season for sure. I think that the thing that stood out to me the most would probably be the fact that, the SEC powerhouses, they're probably going to be the top of the food chain. I mean, that's a safe bet, but they look mortal. I mean, Alabama going into Texas last week, getting the scare of their lifetime, barely squeaking one out against Texas and their backup quarterback. And I just want to say that if Texas didn't lose Quinn Ewers, they were going to beat Alabama and possibly beat them by multiple touchdowns. That's how much Texas was dominating that game. And I don't think that's crazy to say. I would have told you it's crazy to say before that game, but after watching it, I mean, that's just the truth. And Georgia, I feel like, has been probably the best as far as the eye test goes. They handled business. And I think the thing that is really going to be interesting is the Big 12. I think that there's a real chance that those top teams in the Big 12 just kind of knock each other out of contention for, the national playoffs. OK State looks pretty good, but that defense is suspect. They lost their defensive coordinator, and you could tell. Central Michigan really made that an interesting game when it had no business of being an interesting game. So, and we got to go to OU. You and me are both OU fans. OU is a work in progress, and I think fans need to understand that. Mm-hmm. New coaching, new players, new quarterback leading the offense, a new offensive system with Jeff Lebby, the offensive coordinator, in there now. I think we need to preach patience here with the Sooners. There are moments against Kent State where it got a little dicey, and I think that's okay. I think we're so used to being the elite team that we take for granted that sometimes you look vulnerable, and that's okay. I don't know if this is turning into a therapy session or not, but honestly, hey, Kent State, their quarterback, I think he looks pretty good. So I don't think it's anything to be ashamed of that you were down in that game and really had to fight back right before halftime to get some momentum. I think that's fine. I think they're still figuring out their offense. The defense looks better. The thing I noticed on defense was OU is finally team tackling. They're swarming to the ball, and you'll see 3 or 4 Sooners on each tackle, which we haven't seen in decade plus in Norman. So it's very interesting. My gut tells me that SEC will come around and, establish their dominance, but that 4 spot, that 3-4 spot in the playoff, that's where it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, and I think just when you look at what is going on so far, I mean, Kentucky has been pretty impressive. They go to the Swamp, they win, they're undefeated. You mentioned Georgia. I think Georgia is a team that really has the potential, but everybody's going to point to, well, they blew out Oregon. Okay, but do we really know what Oregon is? I mean, Bo Nix is their quarterback. That's not a guy that struck fear into anybody's hearts when he was at Auburn, and I don't think anything's really changed with him going to Oregon. So, in that regard, I'm not sold on Georgia just yet. Now, does that mean that they're not going to be in the college football play? No, but not by any means. They probably will be. But I think right now, looking at it, I think there's just not that team that's jumped out and said, yes, we are going to dominate. We're the for sure team that's going to make it in the college football playoff at this time.
Well, the thing about Georgia that I think is a good sign is Stetson Bennett seems to be in control of the offense still. You know, in the past, you kind of worry about, you know, this team is going as far as Stetson Bennett goes. And obviously he proved it last year that he could handle that and took him to the national championship. But I really wanted to see how he bounced back this year and see if that was, you know, a wave of momentum that he rode. And, you know, awesome year, great story, but maybe it was one and done situation. But I think he's really looked pretty good. And I think that's a promising sign for Bulldogs fans.
Well, and it's kind of it relates back to OU in a sense that Bennett, he's a guy he's just gonna manage. I mean, he's not gonna turn the ball over. Mm-hmm. He's just gonna manage the offense and put his team in the best situations to win. And I think OU with Dylan Gabriel is very similar in that regard. Gabriel's not a guy that's just gonna go out there and blow you away with what he does. He's steady. He's gonna put up yards. He's gonna put up points. They're gonna have success, but it's not what OU fans have been used to. Mostly because they've been spoiled for the last decade, basically.
Of course.
I mean, you just look at who's been at quarterback. They've been spoiled, and even maybe you could probably go back the last 20 years. Really, I mean, just the way a lot of those guys in that era have dominated and just put up points, put up yards, and been playmakers. It's going to be different.
And, you know, the funny thing is, look at the team in Norman that actually won the national championship. Look at that quarterback they had, Josh Heupel. Yep. What kind of type of player was he? Maybe more of a Dylan Gabriel type than obviously like a Kyler Murray, Jalen Hurts, Baker Mayfield. Josh Heupel was a leader on the field. You know, he didn't blow you away with any long, you know, spectacular runs or sidearm throws like Mahomes or anything, but he managed the game. He made the plays when he had to, and that's what I see in Dylan Gabriel. I mean, he's got the experience. He's from UCF, threw for, 70,000 yards at UCF, and he's experienced. But what I love about Dylan Gabriel is he is poised. I don't think he ever freaks out. And something I noticed about Dylan Gabriel that I didn't really notice while I watched him play at UCF, he's really got some zip on his ball. I think he can hit those slants that used to scare me with guys in the past due to like arm strength and, you know, whatever the factors may be. But Dylan Gabriel can put that ball where it needs to be in a hurry. And I love that, especially with the timing of this offense is so important. That could be their downfall too, is they need to get in a rhythm to be able to move the ball and score. When they're not in a rhythm, it just doesn't look good, flat out. So I think they need to do a better job of starting off strong and maintaining it. First game, they started off strong, didn't maintain it. Second game, slow start, came together right before halftime, let it carry on through the third quarter. So putting a full 4 quarters together for that offense is going to be vital. But again, give it time. New team, new coaching staff. So just give it a few weeks, I think.
Yep, no doubt about it. Let's move to the NFL. First week in the books.
Do you want to do a playoff prediction?
Oh, sorry. Yes, playoff predictions. Go ahead, Brad. Lead us off.
It's like you didn't even come to the pre-show meeting.
Right. I'm a diva.
Did you even read my memo?
Yeah, I did. I just blew right past it, obviously.
Fine. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and make our predictions for the NCAA playoff this year, the top 4 teams. I didn't want to do this, but I did it. Story of my life. Taking chalk on the top half, I am going with number 1 seed as Georgia. I have number 2 as Ohio State. I have number 3 as Alabama. And number 4, it gets really interesting. And I could make a case for probably 3 or 4 different teams. But I went ahead and penciled in kind of a surprising one. I went with the Utah Utes at number 4. Now, reason being, they went down to Florida and lost, and that was a tough loss. But I think that they are really poised to run the table in the weak Pac-12 conference. I know USC is kind of a juggernaut now, and there's that whole Lincoln Riley factor. But looking at their schedule, I don't see anything that scares me on there outside of the Trojans, to be honest with you. And I think Utah is built to beat USC. I think that Lincoln Riley isn't ready for a complete Pac-12 team because I know he wasn't ready for that in Norman. So I had the Utes at number 4, mostly because I am afraid the Big 12 will just eat itself. I think OK State has potential. I think OU has potential. We don't really know what's going on with the Sooners yet, but the talent's there. I think the coaching's there. And I could see, OU, OK State making a case for that number 4 spot, but I'm just afraid those guys take each other out. Kind of like a last year situation where, OK State wins Bedlam. They go on to the Big 12 championship. They have a path to the playoffs finally, and they lose to Baylor. I kind of see that happening at the top again, where, it's a love triangle where it's like this one beats that one, but this one beats that one, and it just implodes on itself in the Big 12. So that's kind of my thoughts. What did you have as far as the top of your seeds? Are you going with the SEC, or are you throwing a surprise in here?
I'm going SEC, Big Ten, Georgia at 1, Ohio State at 2, Bama at 3, and Michigan at 4. I don't see. I'm kind of like you. I think USC probably wins out. They face Utah. Utah probably beats them there potentially. But if they get past that, then it could become interesting, and I think you could see a USC be able to push their way up into that spot, just because who else do they have? I mean, you look at their schedule. You get past Utah on October 15th, and the rest of the way there isn't a ranked team. Now, could that hurt them when it comes to the rankings and the college football playoff? I think potentially it could. So that's going to be an interesting deal to watch in that regard.
That Utah USC game is going to be real important for the national picture. I just feel it. This is the first time in how many years that we're talking about a legitimate chance for a Pac-12 team to enter the playoffs. And, everyone's thinking USC, but I see Utah. They've been there before, They're Rose Bowl. They're just that quarterback of theirs is just so experienced. He's a team leader, and I just see them kind of willing to take on the challenge of that new, fresh Corvette in their conference, that USC, that big powerhouse, and I see them just kind of taking it head on. I don't think they're going to have any fear when they're facing the Trojans, and whoever wins that game is going to have an inside track to that 4 spot.
Yeah, I think Kyle Whittingham has really got that program to a place that I don't think a lot of people even imagine. So I still think Ohio State, Michigan coming out of the Big Ten, and then Georgia, Alabama, I could see out of the SEC being in the college football playoff. I think two teams out of 2 leagues or 2 conferences will be the college football playoff this season. All right.
And I am worried about Alabama after watching them against Texas, but the X factor with Alabama is Bryce Young.
Yes.
You saw the play he made to win them that game when he avoided that sack and made that run. It's that's why the quarterback's position is the most important position in the field, is when you got someone special like that just has the it factor, that just can make a play when you need him to. That's the difference between being a playoff team and, I don't know, falling out of the top 10 potentially. I mean, they didn't look like Alabama. So Bryce Young really bailed them out there at the end.
But they also have a head coach in Nick Saban that isn't going to let that stick. I mean, that's just not going to be that they're going to be better than that as they move forward. I mean, that might be the worst they look all season. So they do have a gamut to run through: Arkansas, A&M, and Tennessee in the first 3 weeks of October. So that could be a big gauntlet there and they go at Arkansas, at Tennessee. So 2 tough road games there. It'll be interesting. Arkansas is one to watch, though. I think what Sam Pittman's got going on there will be very interesting.
Yep, I agree.
All right, NFL. Week 1 is over. Buffalo Bills looked about as good as anybody all weekend. man, the offense just across the board in so many games was lackluster in my opinion. And I think a lot of that has to do with not playing preseason. I mean, a lot of these teams didn't have their starters go very long, very deep into games in preseason, and it showed. I mean, there's just quarterbacks not synced up with their wide receivers and their receivers in general. Offensive line struggling because they haven't had snaps in meaningful games, even if it is a preseason game, not having that continuity. So I thought that was interesting. And then are the Cowboys done before it even gets going?
Yes.
With the injury to Dak. I mean, yes, I think so too.
To be honest,
they didn't
Steve,
look
I
good.
think it looked like they were done before he got hurt.
Yeah, they didn't look good before he got hurt, and now you take away him, and you're going to put Cooper Rush in there, and all of a sudden we're supposed to go, oh, okay, they're going to be like, if he's out 6 weeks at minimum, they'll be lucky if they win 2 games.
Oh yeah.
If they go 2-4, and if they're sitting at 2-5 going into week 8, like that's a best case scenario.
The storyline to me now is, do they go out and try and get a temporary quarterback? Like people have talked about Jimmy Garoppolo, and I don't think that's going to happen in a million years. But do they try and go out and get a viable backup quarterback to kind of steady the ship and hopefully break even until Dak comes back? Or do they just let Cooper Rush run the show? Are they content with this being a throwaway season? I think it's interesting because you got to factor in Mike McCarthy. He's already kind of on the hot seat, and I see this as an opportunity to kind of just say, hey, let's just see how it goes. If we crash, then we can fire Mike McCarthy and hire Sean Payton. How about that? Oh, and we can have a top 10 draft pick. I really think that's where some of the minds are in that organization. That's where my mind would be, because you go out and try and bring in a quarterback. What's it really going to do? That offense is still struggling. They don't have enough playmakers on the outside. Ezekiel Elliott looked a little bit better than he did last year, but how long can he maintain that? I think he's kind of on the downside of his career as well. Tony Pollard, awful pass protection. I saw him get blown up plenty of times. So there's lots of holes on that team, especially on the offensive line. Tyrion Smith, there's so many questions. So I think you just kind of let it play out, i.e. half-ass tank, and get you a new coach, get you a top 10 pick, and see where we are next year.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you by any means when it comes to that. It's just
what's the solution this year?
I mean, who do you turn to at quarter? I mean, looking at the quarterbacks that are available in free agency, who out there do you look at and go, oh yeah, that's going to make a difference? Any of the guys that you bring in, are going to have to take time to learn the offense, to be and by the time they start to get clicking, here comes Dak ready to return. So it's poor planning by the Cowboys to not have somebody behind Dak that is of any value. And I know you can say that with a lot of NFL teams, that there's not a whole lot of great options behind there, but man, it's blatantly obvious when it comes to the Dallas Cowboys. And then last night's game, talking about strange deals, the Broncos get the ball down into Seahawks territory, and all of a sudden they decide we're just going to try to go ahead and kick a field goal from 64 yards on a 4th and 5 with 20 seconds left after they took the timeout. Like, what is Nathaniel Hackett thinking?
Oh, jeez.
In his head coaching debut, with his debut of Russell Wilson as his quarterback. I don't understand.
A way to ruin a great opening weekend of football for me, because lo and behold, who does old Brad have in his Survivor League week 1? The Denver Broncos.
Ooh.
And we have a mutual friend who I'm in a fantasy league with as well, lost by less than a point, and he had Williams. So that fumble was going to haunt his nightmares for a while, I think. But the good thing about that is, and what I would tell him, get that out of the way in week 1. I think it's easier to digest in week 1 as opposed to week 7, week 8 when you're making a playoff run. So glass half full, at least it happened week 1. Survivor League, you can't have glass half full because it's do or die. So I'm just angry. But yeah, that was game management. Wow. And then the balls to take his last 2 timeouts when they're just trying to run the clock out, take a knee. That was the cherry on top.
That made zero. And at one point, he acted like he thought he had 3 timeouts left.
I know.
Like he was
I
like
thought that too.
getting on the official, and I'm like, you called a timeout to kick the field goal.
Right.
But, okay. Anyways, let's jump into Super Bowl predictions. Who do you have in your mind for the Super Bowl this year?
Coming up with my Super Bowl prediction was an interesting process. I think that I could have made a case for about 4 or 5 teams out of the AFC. I threw them around in my head a while, and I just kept coming back to the Buffalo Bills. So I have the Buffalo Bills coming out of the AFC, and in the NFC, complete opposite story. It's a toss-up. I don't know who is coming out of there. I mean, you got the defending Super Bowl champions, Los Angeles Rams. They didn't look so good week 1. I worry about the injuries on that team. Matt Stafford looked way off against the Bills. Something to keep an eye on. Do they have that Super Bowl hangover? We'll see. It's hard to repeat. Can they do it? Sure, they have the talent, but I'm not convinced. And then you look at the usual suspects: Green Bay Packers, Aaron Rodgers. He has no one to throw to. That was wild to see. That first bomb that he dropped, and you saw the look on Aaron Rodgers' face. He's like, well, what were you expecting? This is what happens when you surround me with these type of players. So
you traded Devontae, and you left me with this.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you.
So, NFC, what do? Do I reach and try and find a long shot? Nope. All reliable. I'm going with the Buffalo Bills versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and I have 31-27, Tampa Bay sending Brady off into the sunset with championship number 8.
Man.
I know. I don't feel good about it, but
Well, no,
that's what happened.
Nobody would. You feel dirty.
But, when in doubt, just pick Tom Brady.
Yeah, TB12. TB12. All right, I'm going, and this was my pick before the season started, and I don't even really know why, but I went Packers over Chiefs, and part of it is I just hope that after Aaron Rodgers and the Packers win, he goes on Pat McAfee's show, and he says, yeah, I was on my psychedelic stuff throughout that Super Bowl game, and that's how we ended up winning. And then all of a sudden they're stuck with Jordan Love because he will walk away and go do Sports Jeopardy or whatever. He'll be on with Pat McAfee from some island somewhere in the South Pacific.
Yeah, that's always been an odd bromance to me.
And
I love Pat McAfee, but wow.
But yeah, I have Packers over Chiefs in the Super Bowl. I think Mahomes and Andy Reid are out to prove something after the last couple years. I think you're going to see a lot more out of that offense. You saw a ton out of them this past week against the Cardinals. Not that that's saying a whole lot, but I think the Chiefs are going to be really good. Packers, I didn't really have a great reason other than I just wanted to see Aaron Rodgers go out and basically say, yeah, I was high the whole season, and the NFL really didn't care, and I won a Super Bowl. And then he walks away. So that is my thought.
You're just rooting for chaos.
Yes, basically.
And are you
it.
on the same page as me as, the AFC seems like it is just loaded. I think, hell, you put 4 or 5 of those teams in the NFC, and I think they might become the favorite automatically. I mean, we have Buffalo, we have Kansas City, we have, Baltimore if you want to throw them in there. Lamar on the contract year, I mean, when he's trying to make money, I think it's going to be scary. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, the list goes on and on. But
Chargers aren't bad.
Chargers are great. I mean, the talent is just. The AFC West alone is insane. So
the Broncos, if they don't fumble at the end zone twice, we're not even talking about the the mishap at the end of the game, and we're
Yeah.
probably talking about, man, are they Super Bowl contenders?
Right.
Because their offense
And
was rolling at times in that game.
we all know they'll be fine. And
Oh, yeah.
you throw the Raiders in there with Devontae Adams now. Devontae Adams, Darren Waller, Hunter Renfro. I mean, they've got some serious weapons to compete in that crazy division. So it's
Yep.
going to be fun to watch. But NFC, I just don't have a clue. So
I don't
Tom
think
Brady?
anybody really does. I
Yeah.
don't think anybody does. All right, we'll transition from NFL picks to the fantasy football segment. We're going to do this each week. We are going to do a small draft, quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and a tight end. Brad and I will draft. We cannot pick the same players. So once we take them in a given week, we cannot take them again that season. Brad, I will let you start off with the first overall pick in this one.
I was wondering who was going to get the first pick. We didn't really talk about that aspect of it. So that's sweet of
I'm
you.
just generous.
But I think you did it because I feel like we're going to pick the same game first. So let's see how this plays out. But I'll go ahead and take Justin Herbert
Okay.
against the Kansas City Chiefs.
That's fair. That is fair. I can't blame you there. I'm gonna go quarterback as well, and I will go with. Let's go Russell Wilson.
Okay. I like it. That's not what I expected. I thought you'd take Mahomes. I thought we'd have
Well,
a Mahomes.
I'm thinking I
Herbert
may
battle.
want him later on in the season.
Well, that's the thing about this game too is there's a strategy here. Is like, do you really want to take all the big names up front? And probably you shouldn't, but I think I'm going to because I just want to get a lead.
That's understandable. You want to get out to a 1-game lead. I
Yeah,
understand.
I can always run away when it gets bad.
All right, second pick.
Is it a snake? Is it you or?
And we'll just let you go.
Okay.
We'll go first, second, just go right back and forth.
All right. For my second pick, I'm going to be taking running back Saquon Barkley against the Carolina Panthers. Week 1, Barkley rushed for 18 times, 164 yards, and a touchdown. He went ahead and added 6 catches for 30 yards, looking like the old Saquon. And if you remember this offseason, he was feeling a little spicy. I think people had started to doubt if he was actually going to be able to get back to that elite level. I think he took it personally. So hopefully that continues here. Carolina's run defense did not look good. I mean, they have a great secondary, but Nick Chubb reels off 141 against them in week 1. It wasn't very reassuring. And then they got to go up against Saquon in week 2. That's a hell of a 1-2 punch. I think the Giants are just going to feed him a lot that game. And I think the thing to keep track of here is New York versus Carolina. I see Carolina feeding Christian McCaffrey to make up for the lack of touches he had in week 1.
Yeah.
Instant fan reaction is, why did CMC not touch it more? He's the best back in the game. I mean, all-around back in the game. Why is he not running the ball more? Why is he not catching it? And I think they're going to kind of overcompensate here. And I think it's going to be a slow, run-it-out game. I really do. And I think both of them are just going to get a lot of touches. So I don't think you can go wrong with either one of those guys.
All right, I'm going to go with my second pick. Jump over to wide receiver and Deebo Samuel against the Seattle Seahawks. You saw what the Broncos offense was able to do in the passing game against Seattle. Had success. Deebo, not only can he do it in the passing game, but with Elijah Mitchell now out with the MCL, I think you're going to see a little bit more of Deebo in the backfield as well. So a little bit of a flex type play / player, even more so with that question mark at tailback now. I'm going to go with Deebo with my second pick.
That's interesting. I think Jeff Wilson is a popular waiver wire addition this week for a lot of fantasy teams. And I'm kind of with you on this. I don't see Jeff Wilson really producing much more. I just think Deebo's going to get a lot more carries. Deebo's that guy.
Yeah.
He will do anything that's needed, and they need him right now with Elijah Mitchell going out. So I like that pick. I really do. My next pick, I am going to pick aforementioned Devontae Adams playing the Arizona Cardinals. You look at week one, Arizona's defense just got mauled by Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. And it's a little bit concerning because there's a lot of question marks coming into this year about the Chiefs receiving core. And Mahomes still tore them apart, completing passes to 9 different receivers, 360 passing yards, 5 touchdowns. So I think they're ripe for the picking here in Arizona. Devontae Adams, big game.
I like it. I like it a lot. All right, my fourth pick, I'm going to dip down into tight end, and I'm going to go deep into the tight ends. I'm going to go with Hayden Hurst.
You did that on purpose. Come on. Wording.
I really didn't until
You're gonna
you
go deep
pointed
into
it
the
out.
tight
Yeah,
ends.
I
Okay.
didn't really think about it.
Okay.
I'm going to go Hayden Hurst, Cincinnati, taking on the Dallas Cowboys. Joe Burrow, 5 turnovers last week. I'm going to go out on a limb and say he's going to play a little bit better against the Dallas Cowboys in Jerry's world. I don't know. Just something about that game makes me think that Burrow's not going to have 5 turnovers.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Hayden Hurst is probably going to have a heyday. T. Higgins out now with the injury, so an opportunity to step in for Hurst, more passing opportunities between Jamar Chase and Tyler Boyd as well. So I think that third option could become Hayden Hurst because if not, Zach Taylor really likes Samaje Perine for some reason out in the passing game. Makes 0 sense to me. But that would be option number 3 if it's not Hayden Hurst. So I'm going to go Hayden Hurst, get that out of the way early so that I can have those premier tight ends as we move forward in this season.
Smart. Chess, not checkers.
Yeah.
I like it.
Something like that. And I'll probably
I was
lose
also looking at that.
and we'll move on.
I'm with you, though. I was also looking at that game. Jamar Chase really stood out. There's just something there, you know. I think they are... I foresee Cincinnati going down to Dallas and just beating their brakes off because they're not happy about week one. Joe Burrow's not happy. And the only thing I could see slowing them down is a Micah Parsons monster game because, you know, he can get to Joe Burrow, but I agree with you. I think the Bengals are about to really put it on the Cowboys. For my tight end, I know this may surprise a lot of people, but I am going with Travis Kelce against the Chargers. I just love this game. I think it's going to be a shootout. It's going to be an instant classic. Reminiscent of Buffalo Bills, Kansas City Chiefs in the playoffs last year. I think it's going to be up and down. I think Herbert, Mahomes have things to prove against each other. I think they want to establish dominance. And Kelce, in 2 games against the Chargers last year, 24 targets, 17 catches, 295 yards, and a touchdown. I think that continues, and I will take Travis Kelce.
I like that pick. And to round it out, I'm going to go to the top of the running back list, Jonathan Taylor against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Just seems like it's setting up for a whole lot of points.
It rolls off the tongue well, doesn't it?
It does.
Jonathan
indeed.
Taylor versus the Jacksonville Jaguars.
I mean, that alone makes you go, yeah, I think he'll be all right there.
There's some points to be had there.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Had 161 yards last week, 1 touchdown, and 4 receptions as well. So half-point PPR is how we're going to score this. Traditional ESPN fantasy rules for the most part. So that.
And just a quick recap for my team, I'm going Justin Herbert, Saquon Barkley, Devontae Adams, and Travis Kelce. And Steve, you are going?
Russell Wilson, Jonathan Taylor at running back, Deebo Samuel at wide receiver, and Hayden Hurst against the Dallas Cowboys to round it out at tight end.
It's going to be a good one.
I hope so. We'll see. The way that I've been doing fantasy this week or this past week, I don't trust anything. All right.
And hey, if you're following along on social media, TikTok, leave some comments and let us know what your team would be. Compete against us because it's going to be a season-long competition, and you'll see just how truly dumb we are. So get in while you can and see if you can beat us.
And you'll be wanting to get in whatever fantasy leagues we are in.
Yeah, we're easy money.
Yeah, basically. All right, let's go to the last thing on this show, our Against the Spread contest. Top 3 favorite Against the Spread bets of the weekend. We will update these standings each week to keep us accountable and to show just how stupid we really are and to make you question why you even listen to this show.
Absolutely. That's what we're here for.
All right, Brad, lead it off.
Okay. First one out of the gate. I mentioned this game earlier. I like the Panthers, 2.5, plus 2.5 against the Giants. Overreaction for the Giants getting that first victory. I'm shocked. Just reading the line and seeing the Giants as a favorite just really threw me off. And the Panthers really figured it out in the second half of their game. I think they have some growing pains with a new quarterback in Baker Mayfield, but the talent on Carolina supersedes the talent on the Giants to me. You got DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, Shi Smith, Baker Mayfield, Christian McCaffrey, and New York has Saquon Barkley.
Yes, they do.
I'm not even going to say the quarterback's name because we know how that is. So that is my first one. Do you want to go ahead and give me your first one?
Yeah, I'll jump in. First one for me, I'm going to go with Kansas plus 10 at Houston. The Jayhawks, the way they're playing.
Okay.
Houston hasn't looked just amazing. They lost to Texas Tech Saturday, so I think what Lance Leipold has going on with Kansas as well. His name's being mentioned with Nebraska, that job opening now that Scott Frost has been fired. I'm jumping on the bandwagon with the Jayhawks. I think 10 points against Houston might be a little much. That game will be a little tighter than that, in my opinion. So plus 10 for Kansas against the Houston Cougars.
So you're a believer in the Jayhawks, huh?
I'm not going full-fledged like, hey, they're going to go win the Big 12 by any means, but I think he's got them going. He's got a good team going. He showed
you say
it.
plus 10 Kansas against Houston 2 years ago, people would throw you in jail for assault.
Now it's like, that's probably possible.
Okay, you're adding a little spice today, and I like that.
I figure why not?
I appreciate
Let's
that.
just
I'm going
spice it up.
chalk, and I'm being boring, but you're coming through, and I like that. Speaking of, Georgia, minus 24 at South Carolina. The Bulldogs are going to romp the Gamecocks. I do not believe in Spencer Rattler. He seems like a fine gentleman. His time at OU was rough. I think he's got the tools to be an okay quarterback, but I think the surroundings have to be perfect. I think he has to be in a perfect situation for him to thrive, and that's just not it. I see them struggling. I see this as more of a Georgia 42, South Carolina 14 situation.
Yeah.
I will take Georgia minus 24.
Yeah, you and I were texting about Rattler this weekend, and I'm right there with you. It's one of those that you give him a great offensive line, you give him receivers that are able to get open, and yeah, he succeeds, but most quarterbacks do. He's not a guy that can take on pressure very well. If the pocket starts to collapse, he's in trouble, so I think
he really has no pocket presence, right? I mean, forget about escapability, forget about speed. It
it's
doesn't
just
seem
movement.
like he
It's
really
just
has
movement.
a presence in there.
Yeah, you just got to be able to move around within there, and he struggles with that.
And look at like Dylan Gabriel, for example. I mean, he's not fast at all, but I feel like he has more of a pocket presence. He can do the side step when he needs to. He can step up in the pocket when he needs to. It's just that sense that you have while you're sitting back there. You don't have to be. I mean, Tom Brady, greatest pocket presence ever, and it might be the slowest quarterback ever. So, I mean, it's a very interesting trait because Spencer has a lot of physical gifts that a lot of people don't, but there are just certain X factor type things that he's missing, and I think that's going to be the story of his career.
And he's able to read defense as well. I mean, but the biggest difference and the reason that OU went to Caleb Williams last year was their offensive line wasn't great, and Caleb Williams was able to take off. He was athletic enough. He was able to get outside the pocket. He was able to extend plays. And that was something that Spencer Rattler could not do. And with the way that offensive line was, they struggled. And I would argue late in the season they probably should have gone back to Spencer at times a little more than they did when Caleb Williams was struggling to read defenses and be able to find the open man. So
And
I don't disagree with you.
How often do you want to bet on your offensive line when you're in the SEC conference against those monster fronts? I mean, it's just not a good situation.
No doubt about it. All right, my second against the spread, I'm going to go OU with the 11.5 over Nebraska, 11 a.m. kick in Lincoln, interim head coach. Everything sets up for this game to be close. A Nebraska team that's probably going to have a new voice standing in front of them in the team room, out at the practice field, probably going to have a little bit more juice. But I think this is where we'll see that the offense for Oklahoma maybe show signs of what the potential could be as the season progresses. I think Jeff Lebby and this OU offense will get going for once, and I'm going to take the 11.5. I think that's just a little low, especially with the way that Nebraska has played this season and the way that OU defense has truly played this season as well. They've been stout. They've held opponents to low totals throughout this season in the 2 weeks so far.
Steve, I have that exact game written as my third choice.
That's fine.
But being the prepared host that I am, I went ahead and threw in a bonus pick, so I'll just go with that one.
All right.
But I do love the OU pick. I agree with everything that you're saying. People are falling in love with this whole situation Nebraska's in for this major upset situation they're in right here. They just fired Scott Frost. They're at home. Big time name coming in. This is where the upsets happen, right?
Yep.
But hey, did anybody ever just think to themselves, maybe Nebraska is just bad? Maybe they're just a bad team. And I think that's the case here. You can have a perfect recipe for an upset, but if you're bad, you're not going to win. I'm with you. Oklahoma minus 11.5, far too low. I would play it up to 16.5, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But you called it first, so that's yours. I'll go ahead and give you my bonus pick for my third. I have BYU plus 3.5 at Oregon. Nobody in the world has made me more money than Bo Nix. Betting against Bo Nix is my retirement plan. And let me tell you, I'm on a good path. More than my 401k probably. So thank you, Bo Nix. You saw Oregon go up against Georgia and just completely outmatched. Yeah. I don't know how Bo Nix keeps getting jobs, to be honest with you. I mean, some other college saw his body of work and was like, yeah, let's bring that in here. That looks good. I don't know how that happened.
That's the guy we want.
BYU just comes off an impressive victory over Baylor, and you're going to give me 3.5 on them. I will take it. BYU plus 3.5.
That game is in Eugene, Oregon. 59 degrees for that one on this Saturday.
It could be in Bo Nix's house, and they would still get demolished.
2:30 start time for that one as well. All right, to wrap it up, I'm going to go the Southern Cal Trojans, 12-point favorites over the Fresno State Bulldogs. I just think that's way too low for a USC offense that is rocking and rolling. Just seems like a game that's setting up for a late-night Pac-12 game to see USC rock and roll, and all of a sudden people are turning their TV to Saturday Night Live or whatever else before the second quarter even gets going. I just I don't see this setting up favorably for Fresno State this season. I'm not saying they don't have an offense, don't get me wrong, but it's a game that, I mean, they've scored 35-7 against Cal Poly and 35-32 in a loss. So they lost 35-32 to Oregon State. I just don't see Fresno State putting up a ton of points, and even if they do, it's still going to be a lot less than what USC does against them.
Right, and I'm sure we're going to talk about USC a lot more on this show in the coming weeks, but one thing that's kind of concerned me if I was a Trojan fan is, what was it, week 1, week 2, I believe they had, 3 pick sixes?
Yeah, against Rice.
Right. And I feel like that kind of made the score look a little bit
Yeah.
more ideal than it should have for
Yeah.
the Trojans. And I can tell you right now, knowing Grinch's defense, that's not going to happen a lot.
No.
I mean, that's a fluke. So I kind of worry about that's why I brought up Utah earlier. I think Utah's in a perfect position to beat USC, even if USC is way more talented, physically gifted, whatever you want to call it. I still like the Utes. USC has to prove it to me before I give them the accolades that everyone else is giving them, and they very well could earn them at some point. But I've just watched too much of Lincoln Riley teams in the past, so I know not to count my chickens before they hatch. So keep an eye on USC. It'll be an interesting year for them.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I think against a Fresno team that 12 points probably a little low, but you know what? There's a reason why Vegas is Vegas, and they continue to build really nice, shiny buildings on the Strip. And it's because they get things like this right. Those are all from, we're taking those lines from Caesars Sportsbook. So ESPN.com is where we gathered all of those. All right, Brad, we almost went an hour. I thought we were only going to go 30 minutes. Look at us.
Hey, there's plenty to cut, plenty of trash to cut, so we'll be fine.
We will be perfectly fine.
It's good. We gotta have shake the rust off a little bit, but we're back, baby, and we're attacking this head on, and we hope we get lots of interaction with you guys. I think we're in a position now to really give this show the proper attention that it deserves, and we hope it translates with all of you. And hope you follow us and comment, give us questions if you'd like. Let us know what you're thinking.
Oh man, sorry. I just ruined your great spiel right there. That's on me. Way to go.
What did you do?
I know. I had a tab.
Did you cut
open.
it?
I had a tab open, and the audio came across. That's on me. Recap of the new schedule. Here's what our schedule is going to look like. Tuesday nights, we will record. Wednesday, have this out on podcast land. You can follow us Twitter at Game On Guys, Facebook Game On Show, TikTok Game On Pod, and you can always email us old school. Email gameon@gmail.com. Brad, it was great. We will do it again Tuesday. Be sure to follow us across our social media platforms and see Brad's purple background.
It goes with the neon sign logo. Don't start this as we're signing off of a nice, pleasant show.
I didn't start anything.
You're starting stuff.
I didn't start anything.
We
All
were
right.
having such a good time.
That's it. See you next week.
1, 2, 3.
Are you ready, America? It's time for another edition of Game On. With your host, Stevie Ray Braun and Brad Bad News Bowe.